The season is finally here, Tim. Golf clubs go in the closet.
They do. And year 39 for me. I'm 1 year away from my 40th on national television. So this time, actually, January 5th of this coming year will mark the 40th anniversary of me on national television. I started January 5th, 1985 on ESPN with Virginia and Duke basketball with Dickie V. How about that?
That's a great debut.
Yeah.
What was your first national college football game?
My first national college football game was the matchup between Tracy Ham of Georgia State and I believe the first year it was Arkansas State, coached by Larry Lacewell. And then the following year in '86, the Furman Purple Paladins played against Georgia Southern. So it was Georgia Southern and Arkansas State for the Division I AA National Championship in Pocatello, Idaho.
Nice.
In December of 1985.
We don't have enough games of any kind in Pocatello.
I actually did USFL football. I guess technically my first football game to call on ESPN was the Memphis Showboats and the Birmingham Stallions in June of 1985. And I did Herschel Walker's record-breaking run that same year, New Jersey against Tampa Bay. Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Bulls in late June of 1985. So I technically did USFL before I did college in '85.
If I remembered that far back, I might have been at that game if that was in at the Meadowlands because we were New Jersey Generals season ticket holders.
It was in the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
He needed 53 yards to break Dickerson's pro football single-season rushing record, and he went for 55 on an off-tackle play, and it was one of those calls that I'll always remember. And by the way, if you want to go to YouTube, you can find it.
I'm sure.
So
we have all sorts of USFL stuff, old USFL stuff, the original. All right, the college football season is here. It's a season, but just very different. We talked to Sean Clark of App State earlier, and this is interesting. I just want to start here. And I guess in some ways you're going to be dealing with because of New Mexico. For the first time, a group of 5 team is going to have, whether they have a chance or not to win it, but they're going to have a chance to be in the playoff. So I think that changes a lot of the dynamics for those schools. But your big picture thought on as we approach the season, just that element.
Well, number one, I think it's magnificent, obviously, and well-earned over time. It's one of the real positives about the expansion to 12, and I think there are a lot more positives than there are negatives, but that doesn't mean that this system is still foolproof. We'll still have corruption.
Oh, yeah.
Because even though we're going to 12 doesn't mean a Florida State kind of story won't happen again. It just won't be as egregious a story because it won't be an undefeated or, team out of a Power 4 conference that gets left out. That won't happen again. But I guarantee you there could be an 11-1 ACC team or an 11-1 Big 12 team that gets screwed by a 9-3 SEC or Big 10 team. Okay, it's constructed that way. It's constructed to allow for the SEC and the Big 10 to get more, and those schools in the ACC that are thinking we might be able to squeeze 2 in, boy, that's going to be a hard thing to pull off because the metrics will never be on your side given the watered-down nature of the conference regular season. When you think about – and by the way, I think the ACC is going to be better than people realize because I think some of the additions are actually good additions that are going to make it more competitive. SMU is loaded for bear.
Yep.
I mean, they're so pumped up, they don't even want the ACC's money. They're underwriting Stanford and Cal, and those oil barons are like, we're ready to kick some ass now, okay? We're going to show these boys how to play football in Texas because all that crap during Pony Access, that's legit now. We can do this stuff, and no one's turning our ass in. And they got Lashley, their coach, the old
Right.
OC for Auburn for so many years and other places, he's got a hell of a program
Yeah.
with plenty of big time SEC-esque type of tools and money. And they're going to be a problem for somebody. They're going to upset somebody big, whether it's Florida State, Clemson, Miami. They're going to be a problem.
Sure.
Whoever's on that schedule that is thinking we're going to win the ACC and get an automatic bid, you better not overlook SMU. Now, what Cal and Stanford have done, unfortunately for the league, I think, they've hurt the level of important games that you were accustomed to having. By example, NC State going out to play, whether it's at Cal or Stanford, think about the ACC game that has been eliminated, so that game happens.
Sure.
Right? That sort of waters down the influence of some of the conference. But look, Cal at Cal is not going to be easy to beat.
No.
Like that Auburn Cal game is a game that I think could surprise some people at the beginning of the year. That they're not horrible. Stanford's got a ways to go, got a new coach,
Right.
and they don't put into their program quite what Cal does. But the Big 12 got much stronger with its additions. Okay, Arizona and Utah are big-time top 25 teams. The other Arizona school, Arizona State, is going to be good. They're not there yet. And Colorado, I think we'd have to admit the narrative on Deion has changed dramatically. And it's going to be a question of, like a lot of teams that play in the Sun Belt or the American, how many guys are you going to lose in September because you don't have enough backups come November if you do lose them? That's an issue for Colorado.
Tim Brando is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. He'll be on the call for Montana State at New Mexico. Bronco Mendenhall, legendary Virginia coach. I say that tongue-in-cheek. Starting his...
He did a hell of a job at BYU.
He absolutely did a great job. And did a good job at Virginia, too, to be fair. It's not an easy place to win at all. I mean, it just shows you how good George Welch was at his job, that he had built that into a different era, too, but that he built that into what it was. I do want to, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, I don't know that you could say the Big 12 got better because the net of losing Texas and Oklahoma is greater than adding Arizona, Utah, Arizona State, Colorado.
But here's the deal, Adam. They may not have gotten better, but they got richer. Every team is making more money than they made when Texas and OU were in the league. Okay, every team in that conference is making more money per team than they made when Texas and OU were in the league. And Brett Yormark was wise to go and be proactive and go grab those teams and quickly get them in so he could – hey, listen, without his aggression, the Pac-12 would probably still be in business.
Yeah, I agree.
He ran the Pac-12 out of business, basically. And the ACC, in my mind, even though you can technically say they make a little more money now, long-term they won't. And they're not. And Yormark doesn't have the same issues that Jim Phillips has. I think we can both agree on that.
Well, yeah, he doesn't have two teams that are in litigation to leave the league. I think ultimately the ACC is going to be a wealthier league.
Well, not unless they can get those overlords in Burbank, California, at Disney to play ball with them. I don't see that. I don't see it at all. I think the ACC's only avenue to get more wealthy more quickly is to find a deal to strike an accord with the Big 12 and have some sort of merger, which, by the way, I think should have happened. I think that should have happened a long time ago. And if not for the issues in the courtrooms and the litigation that's taking place, maybe Jim Phillips could have been thinking more clearly, and he and Yormark could have gotten together and make sure that these presidents of these schools start seeing things more clearly, because the fact that the ACC is screwed up as it is with its long-term TV deal. And by the way, listen, I had the greatest respect for Swofford and the time that I spent in the ACC, okay? But they were hard-headed and stupid about wanting to have a conference network just like the SEC.
Right.
trying to keep up with the Joneses, okay, those present. We need what they have. Well, ESPN never wanted to do that, okay? They never wanted – they didn't want to do that any more than I wanted to stay in Connecticut before I moved home and left game day, all right?
Right.
ESPN went kicking and screaming into that deal. But what they were able to get done is, okay, we'll give you your channel, but we're going to, by God, make sure you are with us till 2036.
Right.
And they tied them up with that grant of rights for so long that it put Phillips in a position that he really couldn't do a hell of a lot.
No, the contract is the contract. They're not going any. The only way the ACC can dramatically alter that is to convince Notre Dame what honestly everybody in the world would tell Notre Dame is that competitively speaking, you need to be in a league. But Notre Dame, talk about hard-headed.
Oh my God, yeah. But you know
they need to be in a league.
But what happened, Adam? What happened in the end? They got a brand new college football playoff agreement. Okay, that ESPN decided. You know what? We'll overpay. They're paying $55 million per game for the first round of these quarterfinal games. If you break it down, they're paying $20 million more dollars for a 5 versus 12 or 6 versus 11 game. In fact, they're overpaying so much that they decided to sell those games and sublease them to Turner.
Yeah,
and not on ESPN. While NBC paid $30+ million for an extra game in the NFL to go up against those games. An NFL game is going to cost you $20 million less than a quarterfinal playoff game that ESPN is playing, all because ESPN wanted to, by God, make sure Fox didn't get a piece of it. Okay?
Now it should have been a split contract.
Money.
It
should have been.
Should have been a split contract. There's no question about it.
But what happened? Notre Dame was guaranteed what? They were guaranteed an extra home game, and they don't mind being, if they go undefeated, number 5. They want that extra home game, a hell of a lot more than an
But they
SEC
only get that home game if they make the playoff, and I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to see Notre Dame in the playoff every year. I think
no, it's not. But again, it's still if the big winners in this new construct of the playoff are in order, SEC, Big Ten, Notre Dame. Once again, Notre Dame gets married in just by the good old boy network because they're Notre Dame.
Right. I would stop at the first two.
The ACC, which makes the plight for the ACC. You know how much I wanted Notre Dame to be in the ACC. I did. I mean, flat out, it would be the best thing to happen to college football for Notre Dame to be in a league. But again, the lack of equity in this process is still very much a part of it, even though we have 12 teams. We're gonna have a much better November. We've got a better regular season because of these matchups, these intersectional games like the Oregon-Ohio State game in the Big Ten, October the 12th, is a huge matchup. The fact that Alabama plays Wisconsin week 3, I think, or week 2, is great for the game. We're going to have some outstanding matchups and a better November to remember. But the actual 12-team playoff gives more access. That's good. But as I said before, the gerrymandering process, the lack of real rules or criteria for this committee to work with, we're going to have the same issues that we've always had.
Because it's college football. And despite of all of it, and we have to close here, in spite of all of it, Tim, we love the sport, and I love your passion for it, and we'll talk games specifically the next time.
I'd love to be back with you. You know that. And I think we would tilt the axis if I were completely satisfied. Don't you think?
No, that's never going to happen. Again, it's college football. There's no way to satisfy everybody. Tim Brando, right. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks, Adam.
You got it. Tim Brando here on the Adam Gold Show.